The following is a hockey podcast out of Vancouver and Surrey, British Columbia. It'll only consist of a lot of puck talk and even more BS, or in actual words, banter and satire. Enjoy, and as always, go Canucks go.
Okay. Hughes versus Makar. It's a big deal, but Canucks versus Avalanche, let's make that an even bigger deal. We're going to talk about this rivalry should matter again here on Locked On Canucks.
You're Locked On Canucks, your daily podcast on the Vancouver Canucks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey, welcome to another episode of Locked On Canucks. My name is Trevor Beggs, co-host here of Locked On Canucks and also a Canucks writer for Daily Hive Vancouver. And before we dive into this episode of Locked On Canucks, we got to thank you, yes, you, for tuning into Locked On Canucks. It's your team every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Make sure you go subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. I also got to let you know today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. That's $150 if your team wins. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. Coming up on today's episode of Locked On Canucks, we want to take a look at, first and foremost, everyone's talking about Hughes Makar, okay? And we're going to talk about it in segment 2. But in the first segment, we want to take more of an overall look at Canucks versus Avalanche, because I think this has the potential to be one of the best rivalries in hockey. Touch on Hughes and Makar in segment 2. And really the focus there is now is the time for Quinn Hughes to take the spotlight from Cale Makar. Because guess what? Locked On Canucks, your team every day, is the show with the West Coast bias. I'm not the only one with the West Coast bias. My co-host also has the West Coast bias. Cale Makar, how you doing, brother?
This game matters. You know how we were praying for it for years and years and years and years? The game's got to matter again. Well, finally, they do matter, and we're already getting them to matter in November, and it feels good, man. Get home early today. That's what I'm telling the people. That's what I'm telling myself. I'm gonna let the boss know, man. I'm leaving work early. I gotta take care of my mental health. I gotta self-care all night. For real, it's just the truth. It is what it is. I'm excited. Cale Makar, Trevor Beggs, Locked On Canucks. Your Canucks every day, and I feel as if we're not here without the Colorado Avalanche. And I'm not just talking about this specific episode. I'm talking about in general. My first hockey that I ever watched was it the 01 playoffs against Colorado? Colorado. That was actually the first time I ever seen O Canada sang at a hockey game, and I fell in love, and I fell in love with the losing team. That team was your Vancouver Canucks. So again, it all started with the Avalanche, and then Sakic, Hayduk, Forsberg continued on their thing against Naslund and Bertuzzi, blah, blah, blah. It was just the time to fall in love again with your Vancouver Canucks, and this matchup tonight has me thinking a lot about the future of these two star-studded teams potentially meeting, not only for key matchups in the regular season, but playoffs. I know, we excited. We on that gas, okay? Anyways, Beggsy, take it away.
All right, so the Canucks and Avalanche right now appear to be two of the best teams in the NHL. The Canucks at 13-5-1, the Avalanche at 11-6. This might be one of the rare moments in NHL history where both the Canucks and Avalanche have been good at the same time. It has rarely happened since the Avalanche entered the NHL in 1994-95. Really, over the past 20 years, the only time that both of these teams were good wasn't that long ago. It was 2019-20. At the All-Star break, Vancouver was 4th in the West. Colorado was 2nd. They had that crazy game, you might remember, in 2019. Brock Besser scored late to tie the game up. It was a game where the Avalanche led by 2 goals, and then late goals from Edler and Besser tied things up. Adam Gaudette had 2 goals that night. That's a throwback. Makar and Hughes were both rookies that season. Makar had 4 assists. Quinn Hughes had 2 assists in the final 3 minutes to help the Canucks tie the game up. The Avalanche did end up winning in overtime. But that was a game where you could see the potential of both teams moving forward. You could see how good McKinnon and Rantanen were on a night where Pettersson and Besser were also going. You had the whole Hughes versus Makar angle as well. It really did seem for a little bit in 2019-20 that both of these teams were about to start competing for Stanley Cups. And obviously that didn't happen. But Kyle, there is this alternate universe that I want to throw out, and I do love looking into these. In the bubble playoffs in 2020, most people kind of write them off, don't care about them too much. But Colorado and Vancouver both lost in Game 7 of the Western Conference semifinals. There is a universe where the Canucks beat Vegas in Game 7. Colorado doesn't lose to Dallas in overtime. They don't get scored on by Joel Kiviranta. And Colorado and the Canucks face off in the 2020 bubble playoffs. Again, no fans there, but we were all tuned in. We were all glued in. Would have been a pretty epic moment. Obviously, things have gone a little sideways since then.
Yeah, man. And in that alternate universe, I feel as if we'd be holding on to the same things we're holding on today when it comes to these two teams matching up, and that's the star power, right? All the pieces were there, and they're still here, and it's just making tonight more and more exciting. But if we're gonna talk about something else other than the moment, I don't want to talk about an alternate universe. I want to kick it back ASAP to, again, the early stages of Colorado versus Vancouver for you. And I know it all kind of came to an end after Steve Moore, and then even like on Colorado's point of view, like they went from being led by Rob Blake, Forsberg, Sakic, Hayduk to like Sakic and Paul Stastny, and Marek Svatos and Wojtek Wolski real quick, and the Canucks transitioned into having the best players in the league to having the new set of best players in the league with Henrik and Daniel. Like, it was just smoother for us to be at the top, and Colorado went through this weird phase where because of it and because of their lack of importance in the standings, the rivalry kind of disappeared. And I'm not going to front, I kind of miss it, man. I miss it, man. I feel as if it would hit so much different this time around, being 30 years old and just understanding life way more. I feel as if I'd prioritize more of these games even more if, again, these two kind of hated each other. And I kind of see it. Let's go here to the moment. And I feel as if JT Miller and Nathan MacKinnon can really hate each other,
It's funny that you say that, because I was reading an article from Colorado Hockey Now this morning, getting ready for the game, prepping for the show. And it's funny, we had that episode talk about how the Canucks lack bite. There was an article from this Colorado Hockey Now talk about how Nathan MacKinnon is lacking bite right now, which I found kind of interesting. Because JT Miller, the Canucks might be lacking bite, but JT Miller is one guy who's not lacking bite. So, yeah, let's bring it back to the old days, right? I mean, I kind of mentioned 2019-20 is that one outlier. But, aside from that, these two teams for a 20-year stretch were not both in the playoffs at the same time. The one outlier was 2009-2010, where the Avs snuck in as the 8th seed, lost to San Jose. And the Canucks, again, were kind of in that heyday where they were facing Chicago. They played the Kings that year in the playoffs. They were the better team. But aside from that, you really have to go back to 2003, 2004.
Damn.
That was the last time, aside from the one outlier in 2009, 2010, and 2019-20, where these teams were both in the playoffs at the same time. That's kind of an unreal stretch when you're looking at, 20 years of hockey.
Bro, so unreal, man. Think about us, man. We were young and just pretty much at that point where we probably felt that both these teams were never going to be bad. Right? Yeah. That's how we got introduced to hockey. We didn't get introduced to hockey cheering for a mediocre team. We got introduced to Bertuzzi and Aslan, and then right away their biggest rivals in the Northwest Division were Sakic, Hayduk, Forsberg, and company, and Rob Blake and Adam Foote and Patrick Waugh. I didn't even mention Patrick Waugh. Shout out Joe Sakic. That guy's still one of my favorite players of all time. He really is, man. Shout out to the West Coast, man. BC Buds. What's your most memorable moment outside of the Bertuzzi-Moore incident regarding both these teams?
Man, that's a great question. I mean, they had so many back and forth affairs back in the day. I know. Honestly, there's not one moment that stood out, but I kind of looked at the records between these two teams. And, after the Avs swept the Canucks and the playoffs in 2001, these two teams during the West Coast Express era, the Canucks were 6-5-1 against the Avalanche. There was a lot of back and forth affairs between these two teams. I know that one game, I think it was the night where Moore took out Naslund. I mean, that was a game where not a lot of goals were scored. It was super feisty, super chippy. I remember not just from that one instant, the Canucks snuck out of there with a 1-0 victory. But it was one of those games where it just felt like a playoff game. And to me, when you're a sports fan, you really want that feeling.
Of course, man. You want it all the time, man. And I kind of feel as if I'm going to get a part of that feeling tonight. And whether the game lives up to this personal hype that I have is out of my control. But there's a chance. There's a chance, yo. Vancouver has a lot to prove just in general. I think they're facing adversity internally with injuries and fatigue and whatnot, and just having pressure on them from the first time when it comes to having success, and then you have Colorado. I wouldn't say like struggling, but they're not playing their best hockey, you know? Like, look at the article headline that you just mentioned. Like, when somebody's taking a shot at Nathan MacKinnon a couple years after this guy led you to a cup, it's like the standard is really high there, and they're not even living up to the potential. So there's that, and then you got Makar and Hughes, and again, I'll bring it up, Miller and MacKinnon. I don't know how much they're going to be lined up. I know the Canucks are the road team, but I feel as if they're going to meet up a couple times, and they kind of remind me of each other. MacKinnon, a way better player, quicker, blah, 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 way more dynamic. I know, I understand, but I feel as if their intensity is pretty up there, man. Similar?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, when you look at expected goals and stuff like that, that line of MacKinnon, Rantanen, and Nichushkin has been one of the best lines in the NHL so far this season. And you can almost bet that Miller's line is going to be getting a healthy dose of Nathan MacKinnon tonight, which should be interesting. One of the points I wanted to make on this too is
JT Miller's taking a penalty. I'm sorry to cut you off. He's taking a penalty tonight. He's going to do it, dude.
I think one of the points I wanted to make on this was, for the most part, I haven't been super critical of the NHL in terms of the playoff format. 3 teams in the division, lots of division games, certainly face other teams unless they're a wild card. I do kind of miss the old system. Like, I don't think we would have had Chicago and Vancouver 3 years in a row if it was, the new division system. That happened in the old 1 versus 8. I almost would like to see the NHL go back to that. They're almost trying to force division rivalries, and I get it to an extent. But I would like to see the odds increased of a Vancouver-Colorado playoff series. It doesn't have to be the conference finals. You know what I mean?
Oh, bro, just in general, man. Like, how about just playing these guys more in the regular season? Like, give us one more game against this guy. Again, we're talking about something made up, and that's this rivalry between the Avalanche and Vancouver Canucks starting today. Again, we're just putting that out there. Maybe there's a chance of that happening. But maybe we're, again, connecting those dots because we kind of see it on the wall. Not the hate, but the star power, man. Like, great hockey games could be produced, and I think we've seen already a couple over the last couple of years when these groups of stars meet each other. And, bro, we went 13 minutes not talking about Mikko Rantanen once. And we're a hockey podcast, man. Amateurs, man. We amateurs, bro.
Yeah, I mentioned that that line with MacKinnon and Nichushkin has been clicking.
Okay, there you go.
My expected goals, they've been clicking. They've been doing their thing. And the other point is, you talked about Colorado struggling a bit. I think for them, from the Avs games I've watched and looking at the stats so far, I think the 2 areas where they've been struggling is the power play. Their power play, like, despite having all those weapons, is a pretty pedestrian 20th overall in the NHL, 19.4% efficiency. And the other area is goaltending. I mean, Alexander Georgiev has played 15 of 17 games this season.
Holy.
Has a .888 save percentage, and his expected goals adjusted is like negative 7.2. Like, I think it's one of the worst marks in the NHL.
What the hell did he just say, man?
That's
you nerd, man. Just tell me the wins and losses and goals against and save percentage, man.
Wins and losses aren't so bad, but his save percentage is not great at all. And look at that Avs team that was not only they won the one that won cups in 2022, but back in the days they had strong goaltending, right? And I think if the Avs don't have strong goaltending this season, that's going to be a big hindrance to them returning to the Stanley Cup Finals, and that's something that obviously bodes well for the Canucks with Thatcher Demko.
And it hopes to bode well tonight, man. I'm excited for the game. I'm willing to sacrifice some dollars to go watch the game early. You know what I'm saying? Real talk, man. I'm delusional right now. It's not like a drug, but it's kind of like a drug. I'm addicted right now. Kicking it back, doing whatever it takes to make sure the Canucks are in my viewing experience, and I'm actually going to take my time with it. But I mean, I'm kind of getting similar feelings to the feeling last week, 7 days ago against the Islanders. It was cool to experience a good hockey game, and I was super grateful, blah, blah, blah. But it's only going to really matter if they win. And I kind of need the Canucks to win tonight, personally. I don't got no money on the line. I'm just saying I need the Canucks to win tonight. I need the Canucks to win tonight, man.
And you know what? Not only are we hoping that the Canucks win, but I'm also hoping that, this is the year that Quinn Hughes kind of steals Makar's spotlight. And you know what? Makar's been taking that spotlight back recently. We're going to touch on that on the other side. Before I do that, I got to let you know, a new NHL season brings all sorts of possibilities. Quinn frickin' Hughes could score 50 goals. Your Canucks could hoist the Stanley Cup, and you could win big by playing daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper, the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL Network. Sleeper is my number one choice for daily fantasy sports, and especially daily fantasy hockey, because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey contests. All you have to do is pick whether studs like Quinn Hughes, Elias Pettersson, or Jack Stanika. I know he's in the AHL, but the guy's a stud. We'll record more or less in their sleeper projections for things like goals, assists, saves, plus minus, and more in a given game. To win a 100 times bet on Sleeper, you need to correctly predict the outcome of 8 player stats. You heard me, Canucks fans. You could win 100 times your money playing daily fantasy hockey with Sleeper. So start paying attention and nail your picks so you can start winning big. Use promo code LOCKEDONNHL and you'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and locational availability. Before we get back to the program, I also got to let you know it's time to score early this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. That's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. I got to pause from the ad break here shortly because, Kyle, you're wearing the Packers sweater today. The Packers playing in Thanksgiving against the Detroit Lions. Any chance they win or a chance that they cover? I think it's about +7 spread right now.
Of course we're covering, dude. Come on, man. We're going to win tomorrow, man.
Okay.
Dude, people don't know how loyal I am, man. For real, man. If you, my brother, I'm always going to cheer for you guys to win. And now the Packers are what? 4-6? 4-6? You know, I would say a 14.5% chance of squeaking into the playoffs. Every game matters. Let's go beat the Detroit Lions. For real.
Yeah, and Kyle was talking some trash about the Detroit Lions entering the season, and now they're 8-2. So sometimes life just doesn't work out your way, but life can work out your way if you use FanDuel. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, overs, unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL.
Okay, you're back on another episode of Locked On Canucks. My name is Cale Makar. That right there is Trevor Beggs. More importantly, this is the show that gives you your Canucks. Yes, your Canucks every day. Even though I still kind of want to talk about the Colorado Avalanche, man. And I know we're going to do so via Cale Makar and Quinn Hughes. One of the biggest rivalries in hockey. Like when we talk about player versus player. Am I making that up? Sure. But it could be a thing. For real, we got 2 generational talents going at it.
This season,
the next Crosby versus Ovechkin, it's Quinn Hughes and Cale Makar. For real. Anywho, I want to talk a little bit more about Peter Forsberg because I feel as if the more and more I reminisce about my early days watching hockey, even though the rivalry was so big between the Avalanche and the Canucks, and there was a lot of physicality, bad blood, and whatnot, even a playoff defeat, the Colorado Avalanche were still my second favorite team. When I used to do that back in the day, when I was a kid and didn't understand loyalty at all. And a big reason because of that was, Joe Sakic, Bernie B. Boy, West Coast bias, yeah. But an even bigger part of it was Peter Forsberg. I really thought he was the best player in the NHL, and I don't think I can name 3 better players in hockey ever since I started watching hockey. When it comes to like talent and dominance, no way.
Yeah, that's a great question, actually. I mean, Forsberg, I do think he's underrated because of how much he was injured. But if you look at his point per game totals, I think he's got like the 8th highest point per game totals of all time in NHL history. Yeah, that's a tough one though, man. I mean, I'm a big Forsberg fan, and maybe we'll tease to segment 3 because on Komment Korner, there was a little Canucks to Peter Forsberg comparison. So we'll bring that up at the end of the show. But Kyle, you mentioned it, like Hughes Makar could it be the next kind of Crosby Ovechkin rivalry? Because Ovechkin and Crosby was so different, right? Because those 2 guys, 2 #1 overall picks, coming into the league after a lockout, both lighting it up together. But it was kind of a similar story with Hughes and Makar, right? Like I talked about that 2019-20 season, and as good as Hughes was, he was on pace to set the Canucks a single season defenseman points record before COVID hit. Just an unreal year, 8 goals, 53 points in 68 games. Nothing we'd ever seen from a Canucks defenseman, but he gets overshadowed in the Calder race by Cale Makar, who ends up winning the Calder. Hughes finishes second in voting. And it almost has kind of been the story ever since that, in the rookie seasons, these 2 guys were kind of neck and neck. And obviously with the Colorado Avalanche's sustained success, their cup win, Makar wins a Conn Smythe. Hughes has had a couple struggles based on, the absolute bleep show around him in Vancouver. It seems like it was a very one-sided. It wasn't even really a rivalry, but can he start to overshadow Makar and even start to take some hardware away from Cale Makar?
Dude, of course, man. He's winning all the hardware. Let's be honest. Like, that doesn't even have to be a question. Like, look at his points per game. Look at where he plays. Look at the heroic story it would look like, because willing the Vancouver Canucks back to relevancy in year one of captaincy is just something that nobody could have predicted in the fashion that he's doing it. For real. He can overshadow Cale Makar. But the bigger question and the more important one, just as a Canucks fan as well, is hoping that he can share that shadow with Cale Makar moving forward. Because at one point, from my perspective, and this was, again, based on Cale Makar being generational, I didn't even think these two were in the same planet. And that's given way more credit to Makar, again, because he's just unreal. He's literally the McDavid on defense. He's too sick. He's too sick, for real. And now that we're even having this conversation and we can kind of back it up, not just with delusion, not just with 1 year of Quinn Hughes doing this. No, Quinn Hughes has always been really, really good. Really good. And has always been doing historic things for years and years. Like, you know how we're getting like these Bobby Orr, Brian Leetch, Al McInnes type of comparisons? Yo, we've been seeing charts and like lists like that for years and years. Let's be honest. We have on this side. He's been doing it. He's been breaking records, but he's been, again, just right behind Cale Makar, and now they're kind of sharing the spotlight, and that's good, because that means, I always switch it back to NHL ratings terms, that means Quinn Hughes went from, again, a 93, 94 overall to like a 97, and that's a big difference. That's generational.
Yeah. And I think the crazy part right now when we talk about this rivalry is that, arguably they've been the two best players in the league this season.
Yeah.
They've at the very least been the two best players in the league in the month of November. Quinn Hughes has 19 points in the month of November in 10 games. Yeah, Makar has 18 points in the month of November in 9 games.
Oh.
No other player has more than 17. So these two guys are a sole possession of first and second in the scoring race in November.
This is a big game.
I've said it. I've said this on the show, as early as last week. Like, I think if the Hart was handed out today, I still believe that Quinn Hughes would be the winner. But Cale Makar might be second place, and that is unreal, man. This really might be the next Ovechkin versus Crosby rivalry, man.
Yeah,
that is some insane stuff.
And who said that? I said it, Kyle Bhawan, man. I was thinking about that on the drive. Like, that's the easiest comparison in hockey right now, because these two are kind of similar, not only in the sense of piling up points, but also for what they could do for hockey. And we already seen it with like the Erik Karlsson effect from like a decade ago. I mean, these two are kind of byproducts of that, and now these two, in this one season, like, this could be a really weird year where McDavid doesn't put up 130 points, or 120 points. And there's a good chance, like a 25% chance, that a defenseman leads the league in scoring. It could be either one of these guys, and that could, again, change the game forever. You saw what happened with the three-point game in the NBA and Steph Curry and the Golden State Warriors and Klay Thompson. And I feel as if, again, these two lead the league in scoring, it may just pave the way for a whole different type of NHL. Well, maybe a continuation of this, possibly going into like 2030, 2040.
Man, we're really dreaming right now. I love it. And I like how we're talking about Hughes and Makar too, because for the last little bit, it's been Makar and then that second tier with like Adam Fox, Hughes, Heiskanen, Dahlin. Now we're really just talking Hughes and Makar, which is exciting.
Yeah.
Going to be a great game for Vancouver Canucks
shout out
fans
Adam
tonight.
Fox, though, man. Shout out Adam Fox. That guy
he's
burned
good.
us.
He's
You
a
know
good
why we
player.
have to shout him out? Even like, he's got to get some of the spotlight too, is because he rubbed it in our face. He did when he played us. He was too good.
Yeah. And now he's injured. So funny how that works. There's no correlation there. Like, let's be real. In the final segment of the show, we got to shout out the fans in Komment Korner. See what the fans are saying. And you know what? One of our fans did talk about the Canucks and Peter Forsberg. We'll elaborate more on the other side. Before we do that, this episode of Locked On Canucks is sponsored by BetterHelp. This time of year can be a lot. The days are shorter, darker, and it's natural to feel some sadness and anxiety about it. But adding something new and positive to your life can counteract some of those feelings. Therapy can be a bright spot amid all of the stress and change, something to look forward to make you feel grounded, and to give you the tools to manage everything going on. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire and get matched with a licensed therapist, and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Find your bright spot this season with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/LockedOnNHL today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNHL.
Okay, you're back on another episode of Locked On Canucks. My name's Cale Makar. That right there is Trevor Beggs. More importantly, though, this is the show that gives you your Canucks every day. Hey, shout out to all our podcast listeners as well. Rate and review the show if you want. And we accept honesty, man, for real. It's happening again, man. We get some low reviews, people coming after my voice, man. It is what it is, you know? This is why I call my mom every night too, you know? And this is also why I check up on my friends so they can check up on me. And Trevor checks up on me more than ever. And it's not surprising because I always ask him this question, okay? Treat your friends right and see what happens. Anywho, Beggsy, how you doing?
I'm doing great, buddy. And yeah, sometimes I check up on you more than I check up on my own kids, you know? But,
there you go, man.
You know, that's,
Love you, man.
We're brothers, man. We're brothers as the viewers on YouTube can see.
Of course, man. I know you're the darkest one out of us, and we've had our differences, but I love you. And I don't know if I love you if it's not for, again, the Colorado Avalanche. Straight up. I'm happy I'm having this conversation with you, and I'm happy that one of our people, maybe he's not a fan of our show, maybe he's just a fan of the Vancouver Canucks, one of those guys believes that Nils Höglander is really, really good at hockey, and we'll get to that on Komment Korner.
Welcome to Komment Korner, powered by Paraphrasing.
This comment comes from Mr. O.
Hey boys, I took some all-natural ayahuasca safely with a caregiver and saw the future, and in the future, I saw a hockey world comparing Nils Höglander to Peter Forsberg. In other words, don't trade him. He may be one of the most important Canucks ever.
Damn, son. Okay, you know, shout out to the commenter, Canada. I've never done ayahuasca, so I don't have a lot of insight to this, but you know, Höglander to Forsberg, I could, you know, I see where he's coming from. It's a stretch. Both are Swedish, but I think both.
It's not a stretch, bro. You're tearing your groin here. You're never going to be able to walk after, you know, completing this stretch. Okay, for real.
Holy. You know, I think both forwards play with tenacity. They're both smaller forwards who are kind of like fire hydrants. I think that is kind of the main comparison that the comments.
Wait, how small was Peter Forsberg?
Peter Forsberg definitely wasn't a big guy, but he always played bigger than his size.
Dude, I feel like Peter Forsberg like 6'3", dude. This guy seemed like a beast, bro.
No way. He's not 6'3".
Yeah, well, because he was hunched over 6'3". And he was just a big guy. Let's do the research right now, man. Again, I was 6 years old watching this guy.
Man? Peter Forsberg was 6 foot tall.
Dude, that's an incredible. Yo, I'm telling you right now, bro, don't hate on me. I was a young chap watching hockey for years and years and years, and he just played so big, bro. He played so big. Anyways, Beggsy, continue. This is a great episode, man. My favorite episode, man. Learning.
Yeah, I mean, Nils Höglander at 5'9", 185. Forsberg was listed at about 6 foot 200. So, I mean, I'd say, you know, Höglander's shorter, but like the same amount of stockiness, the same amount of sturdiness that Peter Forsberg had. And yeah, both players are pretty unreal with the puck. Yeah, I think Forsberg maybe stood out in a day and age where a lot of guys had more hands of stone, where the NHL is very talented. But I will say this, and agree with the commenter on this, where he talks about the Canucks shouldn't be trading away their young players and prospects before they've fully developed. And we talked about it a bit on yesterday's episode, okay? Got to move the shoulders when we mentioned the episode. Make sure you go check it out if you haven't already. But we talked about potentially trading Nils Höglander, and I think, Kyle, you and I both came to the same conclusion. Don't trade this guy. I mean, sure, there's a world where the right deal is in place. Again, Höglander is a fourth line winger on this team, but I don't love the idea of messing with the mix right now. And I also think Höglander is playing way above his pay grade. So unless you really find that impact defenseman for Höglander, I don't really see that trade happening. But for the most part, I would keep Nils Höglander right now. I mean, the guy's been unreal recently, and again, playing way above his potential and his contract.
100%, man. And you're not trading a guy like that for a rental, man. It's just not going to happen. The Canucks are not in a position to do that, are they? It's interesting to say that and then also say something like, yo, there's a path to the cup for the Canucks. You know, this could be the year the window opens and maybe something can happen, blah, blah, blah. But it's not about playing it safe. It's just about understanding what Nils Höglander can be, and I guarantee they have a grip on that. And also, you brought it up. It's going to be easier to repeat what they're doing right now next year if they have a lot of value on this cap-strapped team, And Niels Höglander is getting paid, like 1.1 next year again? So this is a great time to have a guy like this on your team, and I love the chippiness, the intensity, and I don't know, man. There's going to be a highlight reel or two coming from Niels Höglander very soon. He's feeling it. And he has some of the best hands on this team. He has some of the best hands on a really offensively gifted team. Untapped potential, 100%. Hey, what's going to happen tonight, man? Untapped potential. We hyped up this game like it's the game of a lifetime, man. For real. These guys haven't been in the playoffs in decades. You know what I'm saying? There's no bad blood here. There's been some good hockey games. We've been hyping this up. What's going to happen tonight? I don't know, but I'm happy to be in a place again where these games matter. And who got me here? Not my mom, not my dad, not even myself, not even Trevor Beggs, not even the people, not even the fans. Shout out to the Vancouver Canucks for winning games, okay? You got to give them the flowers. I know it's early, but thank you for doing so early. Anyways, Beggsy, sign us out.
All right. I mean, I don't want to make predictions, but I'm at least hoping for a close game tonight. I'm going to say it's a Canucks overtime victory. Kyle, your boy, JT Miller, with the winning goal. But for now, shout out to the everydayers, the occasional listeners, the first-time listeners, and the new subscribers. We appreciate each and every one of you, your families, your dogs, and your cats, too. Coming up later this week on Locked On Canucks, we, of course, got to cover the recap of Canucks and Avalanche. It is a big game, as we've talked about time and time again on this episode. I also want to look at, which defenseman could the Canucks target if they're trying to bolster the blue line. And finally, at some point in the coming episodes, I want to touch on which Canucks could be making the World Junior squad. Because, hey, we're a month out till Christmas, which means we're about a month away from World Junior hockey. But for now, I'm Trevor Beggs, and that guy's Cale Makar, and you've been listening to Locked On Canucks.